Hey, welcome back to Divine Radio. My name's Katie Jones, and I will be your host, your guide, teacher, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter. Just someone who's here to help and hopefully help maybe provide a little insider perspective shifts for you. Anyways, today I felt called to talk about triggers and being triggered and kind of figuring out and learning how to navigate those. Something that I think a lot of people maybe don't know, maybe you do, which is fantastic, but a lot of people don't realize that triggers are some of our greatest teachers in life, throughout life. Um, I've noticed more and more people starting to use that term, like this triggers me or that person triggers me or whatever, which I think is great because that's the first step in being able to acknowledge the things that are causing that, or well, that are making you feel that way. Now, it goes deeper than that, because it's not really about the person or what they said or what they did that's triggering you. It's in order to heal that, it requires you to go deeper and look within and understand, why is that triggering you? And it could be a range of different things. I know, like right now, for example, a topic that has been triggering me quite a bit, is, questions about, work, a job or a gig, or my finances in general. So, little history: I've worked in the entertainment industry for the last like 8 or 10 years. Um, I've done everything from TV and film to, the music touring world, and I've always been kind of an independent contractor, um, which when I was really into it, I never really truly had to worry about it because something would always come up, a gig would always come up. Um, but in the last year or two, I've really felt like the universe was pushing me to get away from those kinds of jobs and to really start moving in the direction of my soul's calling, which is why I'm started the podcast. I have tons of ideas for other things that I want to do, um, from starting a course to, um, writing and producing my own conscious films, and so many other things. I mean, think I've been blessed to not be short of ideas of things I can do, but you know, the whole idea of like, how much time is that going to take? What am I going to do in the meantime? I mean, I do believe in miracles. I do believe in opportunities just popping up miraculously, but um, I've had to work through a lot of like getting away from the idea of like having somebody else, working for somebody else, and receiving some kind of a paycheck from that. But yeah, so the last couple of years, I've really felt that push to like step away from that. Like that time was ending, that cycle was ending. Um, and that has been scary and nerve wracking because that has been my way of life, like most of us, for as long as I can remember. Starting your own business of any kind can be scary, but when the jobs that used to be coming through without effort on my part kind of slowly started stopping, it was both exciting because I knew I was going in a new direction, but it was also terrifying because, like, I've got rent, I've got bills, I want to live too, Let's see where I was going with that. Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, that's just an area that triggers me, and or has been triggering me. And, you know, I had to start looking back as to why. Like, not just the surface level stuff of like, yeah, needing to pay bills and things like that, but why did it feel so hard to trust that this is my path and that this is the direction I'm supposed to be heading in, and that the universe wasn't going to take care of me. Um, and I actually recently, literally yesterday, kind of had like a more profound breakthrough because I'd look back on my life and, when I was younger, both my parents lost their job, and although we were okay for a while, it definitely affected the family because, things were tough, and um, the things we were used to having and doing weren't an option anymore. I ran out of money to finish my college degree. I was only 11 credits away from it, but I ran out of money and I had nothing else. I couldn't do anything about it. I told myself I was going to go out there and get a job and I was going to pay it off and, finish it, but it just never happened. And I've always felt like money and just having enough was always a worry and a concern of mine. But anyway, so you know, I've acknowledged those things for a while, but again, these things still kept coming up, and I just was like, okay, there must be another layer, another level to it that I need to work through. And I was reading a book, um, and like unrelated to this stuff, and there was a specific date that popped up. Actually, the end of the Mayan calendar, the end of the age of Pisces, moving into the age of Aquarius, and it was 12, 21, 12. And I don't know why, but it just my intuition and soul kind of took me back, like, okay, what was going on then, and I just kind of worked through that whole period of time, that 12 years ago. What have I gone through since then? And I always managed to make it through one way or another, but it was tough in many cases. Times I was sleeping on friends' couches and um, eating one meal a day off the dollar menu at McDonald's because that's all I could afford. Um, I had some legal challenges and issues that I had to pay through. I had my car repossessed at different times, and I just kind of started going through like chronologically, like what happened. Um, and I was like, okay, yeah, so those are definitely, those past experiences are still having an effect on like my current life, but it still just didn't feel like that was fully it. There was more to it. And then, I got to, I guess it was 2016 was the year that I started touring and going on the road. And, and, and it was exciting because I was making more money than I'd ever made. And I was doing something that I'd been wanting to do for forever, for so long. And, um, and I thought, this is it. Like, I'm never going to have to worry about money ever again. Everything is great. I feel like I'm finally getting like a break for the first time. And, you know, it went well for about a year. Well, in the sense of making money and having enough money. It was, both experiences I had actually ended up being like hyper toxic, like, which led to a total like destruction of whatever confidence I had built up. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah, so I'm on the road, I'm doing my thing, I'm making money, I'm feeling good, and then suddenly the boss, the guy that hired me, pulls the rug out from under me and, you know, fires me. But then ends up rehiring me, which is part of the whole toxic thing anyways. So that happened, but before I was done with him, um there was another production team that I'd met and they wanted to take me out with them for their European tour. And I was like, okay, hell yeah, this is it. Like that was just like a little test run, just to get my feet wet and in order to connect me with these people. And I thought, okay, this is it. This is what I'm going to be doing for a while. And um and I'm excited because I'd never been to Europe and I was working with like a major band and um making a little bit more money than I was even before. So again, it was just really like I was just only seeing the good stuff. And I go out on the road and again, without going into all the details, maybe I will at some point, but I don't want to get sidetracked. It was just a hyper toxic situation. And I felt like I was not only thrown into the fire, but I was set up to fail. I'd never done that job before. The people I thought who were going to be with me were were out doing something else completely. So I was out on the road all alone with nobody to really rely on. And, so of course, first time doing something, you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to do it perfectly. But I always knew that like my intention was to do the best I could. And anyway, so, by the time the 2 months were done, I was honestly just ready to go home and get away from that. But still hoping that, you know, that I would still have an opportunity to go out again with them, or maybe not with them, but, was hoping it wasn't like the end. And then I remember calling the production manager and he just said, "Are you kidding?" Like asking him, like, is there anything else coming up? He was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, we're done, da da da," So again, the rug pulled out from under me, and then I felt like I was just back to square one. Of course, I had to like rebuild my confidence and feel like I could even move forward with anything. But this happened. Those were kind of those first two major times where, you know, I was feeling so good and so excited and like felt like I was moving in the right direction, and yet the universe had something else in mind, and I know there were things I needed to experience and lessons I needed to learn, but it still hurt, and it still left me feeling helpless, and like I was never going to just finally reach that stability and security that I wanted. Um, so yeah, time goes on. I end up transitioning into the TV and film side of things, doing really well, working with incredible people who kind of helped me rebuild my confidence. And eventually it leads me to moving out to LA, where, that consistent flow of at least work was coming through. I wasn't always making that much money, but I was still making enough to like survive. Um, but there was always that worry of, you know, is it going to be enough? Am I going to be able to make enough? And always feeling like I had to be really cautious with how I spent my money because, um, again, I was only making enough to like survive. Fast forward to 2022, I start working for a company or which was created by music touring people. I kind of had gotten back into that side of things, um, and we were doing COVID testing and compliance for tours and award shows and just other live events, corporate gigs, etc. Um, and I was when I was working, just kind of as like um, just a general employee, I was still making incredible money, more money than I'd made before. And then shortly after starting that, I ended up getting moved up into a management position. And again, making more money than I've ever made in my entire life. And it felt incredible. To finally feel that freedom and like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm not going down after this. This is just going to keep building and keep growing. And, you know, even if it wasn't with that company, I just felt like things were going to keep going. And, um, I worked with them for a year, and we all knew it was going to be kind of a temporary thing. It was towards the end of like the need where companies and shows were actually wanting to even have COVID compliance. Um, but I thought I would have at least through the end of the year getting paid what I was used to getting paid. And then out of nowhere in October, I get an email saying that, they don't have any other gigs, and in 2 weeks they would, stop paying me my, what is it called? I'm blanking on it. But, so I would make a regular check every week. And then if I was on site, um, I would get paid like my on site rate. Yeah, I'm blanking on the word for it, but doesn't matter. Anyway, so that all of a sudden, when I thought I was going to at least get paid through the end of the year, yet again the rug was pulled out from under me, and and again, it was scary. I mean, I'm grateful that I was able to make money and to save enough money to kind of be able to live off of that. But I also just took it as a sign, like it was time for me to start moving in the direction of my purpose. Because, like, even though I was making the most money I'd ever made, I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. I actually was going through some of the most anxiety I've ever experienced in my life. And but it still hurt, and it still had an effect on me, so yeah, so as back it up to yesterday when I kind of had that breakthrough, I just realized that has been that driving force behind this trigger, is that I'm still carrying those wounds from those past experiences where I felt like I was heading down the right path. I was doing the right things. Everything was working out, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's it's done. Um, so yeah, I mean, triggers can come up in many different ways. I know this specific episode has been kind of about my trigger with finances and money. But I guess the whole point I'm trying to make is that you have to be able to really sit with it, go deep with it, um, and try to understand what is the deeper hidden meaning, what is the deeper hidden wound or fear behind why this is causing you so much angst or anxiety or fear. Um, and kind of like I mentioned before, you might uncover a layer and you're like, this is it. Okay, I'm good. I'm done. And you might go through a period of time where that stuff doesn't trigger you. But then all of a sudden, something will come up and you'll feel re-triggered by it. And all that's saying is that there's another layer, another deeper layer you have to go through. I mean, that is the healing process, at least from my experience. Um, you've got to kind of uncover each layer, layer by layer, and they'll come up at different times. It's not always going to happen in you know, one smooth process. It's kind of like you take a few steps forward and then sometimes a step back, but every time you're still making progress with that healing and trying to understand it. Um, I hope this is making sense, because again, I'm just kind of letting this flow and go. Um, but having worked through as many of the triggers that I've gone through, it hasn't always just been about finances. It's been about, you know, the way I look, and if somebody makes a comment on, or used to make a comment on, like, anything I was wearing or my makeup or my hair or whatever, I mean, it could be so many different things. Like, it would trigger me, and I had to look at them and not only understand where they were coming from, but then do the work to build that confidence and that trust and that self-love within myself, in order to realize, like, those things don't define me. um, those things aren't worth my time worrying over, because I trust fully that, you know the universe will always take care of me and will always give me exactly what I need when I need it. um, and that takes time to get to that point, especially if you're just really beginning this journey, or even if you're still in the midst of it and you've done a lot of work on yourself. Like, it takes time, and you really have to try and find the patience, which is something I've also struggled with. The patience, and then just the trust in yourself, that if you really truly want to overcome something, you can, and you will find a way. And only you will ever truly be able to, like, release and heal those things. um but that's why sometimes it's good to, yeah, like, seek out some external guidance or input from somebody who's doing the work themselves. And it doesn't have to be like a direct conversation. There's great videos on YouTube, amazing books, You have to find somebody whose energy and message resonates with you, and you know gather and gain as much as you can from that. um, so yeah, um, triggers are our greatest teachers. You have to give yourself some space and some grace when they come up, um, as well as the people or the things that are triggering you. I know it's easy to kind of point the finger or the blame that at them, like they're the reason that this is coming up, but you're only doing yourself a disservice. All right. So, yes, you're only doing yourself a disservice by pointing the finger at someone else, rather than yourself. And you shouldn't be blaming yourself either. Like, this is not meant to be a punishment. It's not meant to like break you down. It's only meant to help you heal so you can finally start living as authentically as you possibly can and start living up to your highest potential, because ultimately that is why we are all here. Um, and each person's potential is going to be different. And again, I know it's easy to want to have somebody give you those answers. Believe me, I literally have that's all I was doing, was trying to find somebody to tell me who I am and how to be, and which never truly aligned with me. But I was always seeking things outside of myself to like help me find those things out. But over time, throughout the time of doing that, I finally got to this place where, like, yeah, I fully understand that only I will be able to answer those questions for myself, as well as healing the things that are ultimately holding me back and bringing me down. Um, so I just encourage you all, wherever you're at on your journey, you know, just to start at least acknowledging and like pausing when something is triggering you. If this isn't something you're used to doing, if something triggers something within you, just acknowledge it. Take a moment if you can. If you can step away and like really like dig into it, do it. In that moment's best sometimes, because then you're feeling it all and you're able to just really like dig into it. But at least take note of it, and then give yourself, set a time for yourself, whether it's in the morning or at night or whatever, or whenever it works for you, and just try to dig back, pull back the curtain and dig through the layers, and understand that deeper meaning of what it is, and where it's coming from. A lot of times it stems from a fear of past experiences that you haven't fully gotten over. You might feel like you've gotten it over, like those things that I went through, like they don't it's not something that comes up for me, like the with the jobs where I felt like the rug was pulled out. Those aren't things that I think about, and they're not things that I'm like constantly reeling over. But there was clearly still like an underlying fear that was causing me to worry and to feel like things weren't going to work out in my favor, and that something wasn't going to come through. And and all that was doing was, yeah, ultimately just blocking those kinds of things from coming through for me. So um yeah, just do your best to at least acknowledge when one of them comes up. Sometimes that's the best thing you can do. It's like, okay, that that triggered me. That doesn't feel good. And if you can, just start asking yourself questions like, where is this coming from? And allow the space for something to come through. You can kind of, in your process, think through it a little bit. Sometimes that's what it takes for you to finally get into that deeper space. If you're into meditating and talking to your guides or whoever, your higher self, go into that space as well. um, however you go about your healing process, just just tap into that and start allowing yourself that that time um, to work through those things, because that's the only way you're ever going to be able to find like the true peace, happiness, and fulfillment that you seek, like on a deeper soul level. Um, hmm, yeah, I think that might be kind of all I have to say. I hope something I said helps. At least helps you kind of start taking a closer, deeper look at what you're going through and what's coming up for you. Because, like I said at the very beginning of this, if it's coming up, even if it's just one time or if it's consistently, it doesn't matter. It's something within you that wants to and is ready to be acknowledged and healed and ultimately released. At this time in not just all of in our lives, but in like the state of the world, our souls are calling out to be cleansed, released, and healed. So again, so we can all start living up to our highest potential and our fullest purpose. Um, so don't ignore it. And if you do, that's okay too. But just realize it's not going to go away. So the sooner you can find the courage to really sit down and feel through it and like dig deeper into it, the sooner you'll be free from that. Um, and ultimately, that's what matters most, for all of us to, you know, release the blame, the shame, the guilt, the fears, the worries, and just start living more peacefully. And also, I guess one thing I want to add too is just giving people who are you're around who might be feeling triggered, giving them that space and that grace, because again, we're all going through these kinds of things and we're all trying to do the best that we can. um, if you feel like you have something you can offer them as far as like some input about how they can start viewing that, then do it. But at the same time, if they don't ask for it and they're just looking for a place to express themselves, then be that if you feel you can be that for them. But also, again, just allow them to feel that. um, if it's something that's toxic and super negative and it's affecting you greatly, um, you don't have to be around that either. you know I'm not saying stick around and be their sounding board and let them just vent, and if they're no, because your space, your energy is the most important thing. um, so yeah, just do your best to determine what's right for you when it comes to someone else feeling triggered, and you know give yourself some grace when it comes to feeling triggered yourself, um, because again, it's only here to help you. All right, well, I think that's all I got for right now, and the wind is really picking up here, so I'm going to um, call it a day, and yeah, until next time, take care, guys.